When does reclaiming a word actually empower us? And when does it blur our identity? So, some people have argued, about the word dreadlocks versus locks. But not even this. There's language shifts inside our African American communities, even sometimes for empowerment and sometimes out of confusion. I'm not here to judge or anything, but I'm just here to explore. Like, we'll go with the dreadlocks history, but then I'm gonna dive into something further in terms of our identity and how we let certain things empower us that I feel like shouldn't empower us, but at the same time it should. You'll see what I mean. Okay, so long story short, where the hair came first, right? Locked hair existed long before Jamaica, right? Ancient Egypt, Maasai warriors, Indian sadhus, various African spiritual traditions, right? The hair was never dreadful. It was more like I'll get to what I mean when I say dreadful in a second. It was spiritual, it was cultural, and it was just simply natural. Jumping into the 1930s and 1940s, Rastafarian movement rises in Jamaica. The Rastas grow their hair naturally as a rejection of the colonial grooming standard, because Europeans want to just take over everything, and even with standards. Funny enough, crazy how that reversed today. But anyway, Europeans or colonials, authorities saw it as and called it dreadful, meaning frightening, unkept, dangerous. Is it really dangerous? Well, why are you scared of hair? That's crazy to me. Anyway, the label stuck. The dreadlocks. Not because of the hair, but it was because of the fear and misunderstanding, which to me is very irritating. Like, if you don't know something, that doesn't mean you need to be fearful of it. And if so, that shows how insecure you are. Now, honestly, I don't know if I made a video about this yet, but I felt like Europeans or people who call themselves Americans need to understand that you're not American. You literally have taken over a land full of Native Americans. And not only that, it's a stolen identity because you're not American. Now, at this point, I guess modern world would probably say you are American, because unfortunately, the 1% or even less than that in this country, can they even fight you on that? Not really. So I'm saying for like white supremacy. I'm not saying all white people under the same. Your ancestors, a lot of your ancestors have done crazy things, but there's a lot of white people that are actually trying to reverse that, hold their people accountable, and I appreciate you for that. But anyways, I digress. So the reclamation part, flipping the meaning, right? Instead of running from the insult, Rastas flipped it intentionally. The dread became like an awe reverence to God, or Jah in a sense, in a biblical sense. Then dreadlocks came in, becoming a symbol of commitment, spiritual strength, and defiance. It wasn't just a slang, it was identity work, a mind shift. Compare it briefly to how other communities reclaim the words, like turning insults into power or using language as resistance. But it highlights that reclaiming is interesting because, for me, I guess reclaiming is not always straightforward, but I feel like this leads towards a gray area. So basically, we decided to flip it, and then it became a symbol of commitment. It's like, okay, bet. Keep calling ourselves dreadlocks. Okay, bet. Let me show you what these dreadlocks can do. And it's like, that's cool. It sounds like a great story. It kind of almost sounds like a typical, pretty good movie type story almost. It's not as simple as that, but I feel like there's a gray area though, right? Like, reclamation can work, right? But I feel like it also confuses the history. Like, if I had some locks, I just say locks because I don't want to associate myself to what the colonials back in the day decide to call it. I just don't do it. I know I'm not in that time, but me personally, I avoid it. Now, on the other hand, there's my side of things, and then there's others that hear dreadlocks and think of spirituality and pride. Those two truths can't exist at a time. And when the words get passed down without context, I feel like it does lose its meaning and even cause conflict. When does reclaiming heal us though? Like, when does it bury the original harm? When does it create more confusion than clarity? Like, this is where I go into the word nigga, right? This is where I feel like it goes into that gray area. Now, dreadlocks, I get it. It's a little less serious. It's way less serious to me. but I mean spiritually no. But here's what I mean, like nigga, then bitches, like, you know, I'm talking about in our community where we start calling each other bitches, start calling each other niggas and things of that nature. I just feel like, you know, black identity has evolved, you know, and I understand that. But it's like, if they call, for example, right, I'm gonna be straight up with y'all. Back in the day, or even now, we be calling us niggers, right? But then we started saying nigga, right? And that's where it confuses me. The word, that N word with the ER, it comes from a Latin word niger, meaning black, right? Through Spanish and the Portuguese, right? It entered in English in the 1600s. In the context of chattel slavery, it stopped being descriptive and it became dehumanizing, right? Because it used to just mean black. But you know, Europeans could not help themselves, and they decided to do this. They reduced enslaved Africans to property, right? They justified the violence, segregation, and inferiority. They stripped black people of individuality and humanity. But by the 19th and 20th century, it was one of the most violent words used in English language, bro. Most violent. I'm not even saying this. You can look it up. Directly tied to lynching and the Jim Crow laws and the racial terror and stuff like that. So, honestly, it's more of a tool used for domination. But today, how it's used to empower is within the black communities. They altered the form to nigga, right? And they reclaimed it in a group term, a way to neutralize the sting by controlling what it says, a signal of familiarity, shared experiences, solidarity, things of that nature. Psychologically, the logic is if we say it, it can't hurt us the way it was meant to. It's similar to like other reclaimed words, like I said, with the dreadlocks and locks. Now, that one's not too bad. I don't care too much about it. But think about it. Honestly, though, does it actually empower? It's like a marker of like shared survival or cultural closeness, right? A resistance of being shamed by outsiders, right? It can feel empowering in that way. But where it breaks down is that it normalizes a word built on dehumanization. It blurs the boundaries, right? It makes it easier for the outsiders, or let's just say any person that doesn't normally use that word. It sounds weird, and then it can reinforce negative self-concepts when used casually or constantly. And then it replaces a deeper identity with the slang. But many black scholars, like or elders and thinkers, argue, right, reclamation can reduce pain, but it doesn't it doesn't erase the history. Long-term empowerment usually comes from a new language, but not recycled harm. That's typically how it works. Now, like I mentioned, my personal stance is that I prefer to choose locks over dreadlocks. I'd rather say negus or negus, which is a royal title for a king in Ethiopia, rather than saying nigga. I'm not policing no language. I'm not saying, "Ho, you're stupid," using the word. No, why would I dehumanize you like that? That's the complete opposite of my message. I just feel like knowing the history will give people like the choice to understand that, hey, this is what you're using, this is where it comes from. And I feel like it's important. Long story short, people have different relationships with the words. I get that. Like for example, we already said dreadlocks was Rastas reclaimed as spirituality, while others rejected it in its colonial roots. And then both perspectives are valid. But once you understand the context, in my opinion, just understand the history before you actually use the word itself. But at least don't be ignorant to trying to understand. And even if a person listening to this video disagrees with me, it's okay. I'm not mad. You can disagree. I'm just telling you from those two sources of history, hopefully it gives you a better understanding on how we came to be today and how maybe my stance could be understandable to some people. So I love y'all. That's just my spill on it. Hope you have a great rest of y'all day. God bless y'all, YouTube.